ask. I'll try to extend this and go over more problems with you. Since you guys did do that extra homework quiz, I will spend more time going over homework next class period for you as well. But first of all, ladies and gentlemen, when you're graphing the secant or the cosecant, all you're simply going to do is graph the reciprocal function. So you have y equals -2 cosine. Actually, let me do this in a different color. Y equals -2 cosine of 1/2 x. So if you look through the notes in the book, you would have seen that that's exactly what they tell you to do. Just graph the reciprocal function. Now, you did cover how to graph the reciprocal function with me. So to do this, first thing you do is determine the amplitude. The amplitude is the absolute value of a. Remember, y equals a times cosine of bx minus c plus d. Yes? Amplitude is absolute value of a. So absolute value of -2 equals 2. The next thing is to figure out the period. The period is 2 pi divided by b. Well, b in this case is what's being multiplied by our x, which is 1/2. So therefore, that's 2 pi divided by 1/2. Just like I did before, when you have a number multiplied by a fraction, multiplied by the reciprocal, which gives you 4 pi. OK? The next thing is to find the x scale. All I need to do for the x scale is take my period and divide it by 4. So 4 pi divided by 4 is equal to pi. I would write these down if you did not remember these from the last part, because this is what we did 2 class periods ago. The next thing is to find the phase shift. The phase shift is simply, remember, if you guys remember, the initial period always started at 0. And then if that starts somewhere else, then that's the phase shift. So to find the phase shift, just take bx minus c and set it equal to 0 and solve for x. Well, in this case, you have, when I do that, I have 1/2 x equals 0. Well, when I solve for x, what do I get, Brandon? I get x equals 0, right? So is there a phase shift? No, I'm starting at 0. And the last one, which is kind of like an afterthought, is the vertical translation. That's going to be your d. That's if it's graphing up or down. And do I have a d in this problem? Am I adding or subtracting anything? No. So this one is none in this example. OK? Ladies and gentlemen, you need to know how to do this for the first homework we did in this class and the last homework that we.
Attention students, anyone interested in becoming Miss Mandarin 2017, please meet after school on December the 8th.
Oh, OK.
There will be an important meeting where applications.
You can go and sit back down.
Plan to attend this meeting at 2:10 in room B101 on December the 8th. Also, this year's spring musical is going to be Grease. If you would like
We have plenty of time, so you can go and sit back down.
Check for
Sven, thank you.
Sign-ups open Monday, December 7th, and close on Thursday, December 10th. Simply stop by room A110 to sign up to be on a particular crew. If you're a performer, auditions will be held on Wednesday, December 16th, after school in A110. For more details, attend the next drama club meeting on Wednesday, December the 9th.
Guys, you're so far behind instruction from other classes. There is no time for us to waste. I'm not going to give up just because we're missing some assignments. You guys need to understand this information. You guys need a lot more instruction than what you're currently getting. So please pay attention. Let's try to finish this up. So anyways, we figured out all this information. You need to know how to figure out this information. You need to know how to do all of this, no matter what function I give you. OK? So that's the function. Now let's graph cosine. If you guys remember what cosine looked like, I showed this to you guys. Cosine went up to 1, went down to -1, had a period of 2 pi, right? It looked like this. Yes? Now, let's look at what the x scale is. The x scale of cosine, you don't remember? OK, well, you need to go back to your notes and probably come and see me. The x scale is pi. So that means for every unit, instead of going by 1s and 2s and 3s, I'm going to go by my x scale. Does that make sense? Now, let's look at the amplitude. The amplitude is 2. Instead of the graph going up to 1 and down to -1, since there's no vertical translation, it's going to go up to 2 and down to -2. right? Okay. Then it takes a period of 4 pi. So the graph, technically, if it looked like this, would go from here, down to here, down to here, over here, up here. So the graph would look like this. However, there's another problem. What happens when there's a negative in front? What does that do? It flips it, right? So actually, the graph looks like this. Right? It got reflected because that's a negative. Correct? Negative cosine. Then I can continue the pattern. Because remember, this pattern goes on and on and on forever, right? OK. Yes, so this is homework that you should already have known how to do. Now, what I wasn't here to teach you, though, is that now to graph the secant, all you simply do, remember cosine represented the x-coordinate, right? Well, secant represents 1 over x. So here, cosine is 0. So what's 1 over 0? Undefined. So wherever cosine crosses the x-axis is now an asymptote. OK? Then what we do next, so you have asymptotes. Then they share the same minimum and maximums. So you graph little parabolas approaching the asymptotes from the max and the min. So what the graph would look like is these asymptotes with these little parabolas from the max and the mins of there. OK? Ladies and gentlemen, what I asked you to do, I still would like to go over tangents.